From the resumption of talks with striking teachers to the push for a return to bargaining for healthcare professionals and awaiting the Wyatt report. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, former journalist and broadcast news educator Laura Knop and Stacey Hatcher, communications professional who has worked for Conservative leaders in Ottawa and on Conservative leadership and election campaigns here in Alberta. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with the ongoing strike by Alberta teachers. And according to a new Angus Reid survey, more than half of Albertans polled are siding with educators.
Crucially, 58%, again, just about 3 in 5, say that they believe the UCP government has been doing a poor job in terms of performance on the education file.
The two sides, along with a mediator, returned to the bargaining table Tuesday. Last week, Alberta's finance minister said the province received a new proposal from the Alberta Teachers Association, though details have not been released. ATA members walked off the job just over a week ago. And ladies, if we could, we'll start with the resumption of talks. The ATA indicating today the two sides are considering their options based on Tuesday's conversations, and that future bargaining dates are being considered. And according to a statement from the finance minister's office, the ATA shared new proposals on compensation and classroom complexity, which are currently being reviewed. And while pleased the parties have resumed discussions, they remain concerned that the new proposals may not contribute to a reasonable settlement. So, Laura, what kind of read do you think Albertans can take from that, where progress in bargaining is concerned?
Well, they have opened the door ever so slightly, so a little creak open there. It sounds to me like they're still a long way apart. And from, I've been doing a lot of listening to teachers, both in interviews and from the teachers that I know. And what seems to come up more and more is the complexity of the classrooms and the fact that the classrooms are so large and there's a lot of people there with a diversity of talents, with a diversity of education, with a diversity of needs. And it just seems like the teachers just never do get caught up. So I know that there is this push for more money. And of course, we've gone through some pretty wild inflation over the last few years. But more and more, I'm getting the sense that the teachers just really want to be able to teach as well as they can. And I think that's what the public is picking up on. And that's why the public is supporting them.
Stacey, these signals coming out of Tuesday's talks, did they point to another deal being in the works, or that maybe the two sides are digging their heels in?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, it's really tough to tell what's happening behind the scenes with both of those groups. What I can say is the longer that kids are out of the classroom, the harder it's going to be when they get back to the classroom. And not to take anything away from elementary school students. I mean, it's important that they be in the classroom, but being the parent of a high school student, like everything hangs in the balance. And especially grade 11 marks start to really matter. You use them to apply to university. I mean, we're talking grade 12 diploma exams. And what's the plan to make up the lost time? I don't know. And it feels to me like it's going to be a little haphazard. So speaking as a parent, I hope that they get back to the bargaining table and that they're really serious about it and that they can both have an appreciation for one another's side. My parents were teachers, so I have a great deal of support for teachers, and what they are experiencing in the classroom is very complex. Now, listen, a lot of that, especially in the Calgary context, has to do with how many new Calgarians have come into the province, and especially from conflicted regions and areas. There's no question they come with more needs and challenges into the classroom, which means that other students aren't getting as much time with the teacher. But there are a lot of other issues that are happening in the classrooms. And bullying and also cyber etiquette, cyber security pieces are very important. And I'm not sure that schools are spending enough time on those pieces, but I'm sure that that's not part of the negotiations. I mean, let's also remember that the government has agreed to build a lot of new schools to the tune of billions of dollars. So it might be hard to cap class sizes until there's new space that you can actually grow into other classrooms.
Laura, that Angus Reid poll we referenced a moment ago, 58% support for teachers, that left 21% siding with the government's position, a further 18% not taking a side. How do you think polling like that weighs on what happens in these talks?
Well, it gives the teachers an extra bargaining chip. It's always better for the employer if people are on the employer's side. So, teachers can legitimately say, look, parents do understand what is going on. And I think we also, in reference to, Stacey's point about high school students, I mean, they've also gone through COVID. And then, we've had the fallout from having all those students out of class. We've got to get these kids back in class as fast as possible. We can't afford to have a whole group of kids fall behind the way they did before. And again, I think that's what parents are understanding. And ATA has a legitimate point in saying, at the end of the day, let's just get them back into the classroom.
All right, still on the labor front, we heard from the Health Sciences Association off the top about efforts to get back to the bargaining table on that front. Stacey, it appears those talks still roughly a month away. The union, though, wants it sooner, as in this month. Is this a situation that can sit on the sidelines for a while? What do you make of pressure building here?
Well, I think pressure is building, and I will just say, goodness gracious, is everybody on strike these days? I understand that life is expensive and people want wage increases and they're suffering burnout and staff shortages, but sometimes there's only so much the government can give, and I think that's a little bit missing. And if I can trail on a little bit with this one, is a lot of these issues, whether it's the ATA, whether it's the HSAA, I mean, we came through a global pandemic, and towards the middle of that, we all said our systems are going to need some TLC when we get through on the other side of this. We're going to have to talk about healthcare. We're going to have to talk about education. And really, the other piece, too, is senior care, because let's be clear, we didn't solve that challenge either. And so, in a sense, I feel like everything's come home to roost now. We said we wanted to talk about it and fix it, and we didn't. We got complacent, and now here we are, and everyone's on strike looking for us to talk about these very challenges.
So, Laura, where does that leave the government at this point in time?
Well, as Stacey said, the government has been very clear that it has a set amount that it can spend. When thinking about this today, I was thinking, where are the efficiencies to be held? And often, as a former instructor myself, it's the frontline people, the instructors, the healthcare workers that are really dealing with it. I would love to see a government go in honestly and say, what are the levels of bureaucracy in terms of the province? It's blown up AHS yet again, but it seems like the bureaucrats never disappear. So if there are efficiencies to be held and we're being honest, let's look at the levels of the people who aren't frontline workers so we can support the frontline workers and the people that they are supporting.
All right, we need to take a bit of a break, but when we come back, expectations of a third-party report into contentious health contracts. More from our politics panel in a moment. Welcome back, all eyes on the provincial government as Albertans await the outcome of a third-party report into alleged corruption involving health contracts, findings of which were due today. The allegations stem from a wrongful dismissal suit by former HS CEO Althana Mentalopoulos, claiming individuals high in government interfered in overpriced contracts for private surgical companies and medical suppliers, claims that have not been tested in court, and the government has denied any wrongdoing. The Premier hired former Manitoba Judge Raymond Wyant back in March to conduct the review. Laura, word from the government is that a statement and the report will be made public in the coming days. No timeline given, though. How long do you see the government's maybe sitting on this, especially considering MLA's return to the legislature a week from tomorrow for the speech from the throne?
I feel like they would like to sit on it as long as humanly possible. There's always the hope that these things kind of slip out of the media. Maybe people aren't paying attention to these things. And if we just don't say anything, it will go away. That would be a huge mistake, in my opinion, because especially with the strikes that we are seeing in the public sector, people are getting pretty much in tune. Those allegations were very, very serious. And again, if we're talking about the amount of money that is available to the government to spend on healthcare, then we absolutely need to know if that money has been misused. Is it going to be pretty? I don't think so, but I really think the government, we've already had delays. I think the government needs to get on it, hold its nose and just go, okay, here it is.
Stacey, while RCMP, as well as the Auditor General, looking into the matter as well, how much confidence do you feel Albertans should have in the outcome of this particular third-party report?
Well, in a sense, I feel like the RCMP and the Auditor General's report will either boost the Wyant report or force action on it, would be what I would say. Listen, normally these kinds of government inquiries and reports that come forward, there's not a lot done with them. It pains me to say that, having worked in government many eons ago. But if you look here in Alberta, there was a flood report done in 2003, and we still had a major flood in 2013, and that report sat on the shelf. And I use that as the most shocking example, really. But it's not isolated. It happens all the time with government. So in a sense, it's probably helpful to have the other two reports, RCMP and Auditor General. That will help boost whatever's going to happen with the Wyant report.
All right, we have time for one more topic. Alberta's Chief Electoral Officer has issued the petition for the Alberta Funds Public Schools Citizen-Led Initiative. That means the Calgary teacher behind the effort has met necessary requirements and is now able to begin collecting signatures. The petition question asks whether Alberta should end the practice of putting public funding towards private schools. Under new rules, canvassers will have until February the 11th to collect nearly 178,000 signatures in order for that petition to be successful. Stacey, given the degree of attention on Thomas Lukaszik's Forever Canadian petition, it's drawn a lot in recent weeks. How challenged do you see this new effort being in building momentum?
Well, isn't direct democracy grand? I mean, this is a double-edged sword, right? When you have a process like this, where does it end? Where does it stop? And it feels very remarkably similar to American ballots, where you could have any number of propositions on the ballot that one has to vote for. And weren't we just complaining that there were 90 candidates on a ballot, in Pierre Poilievre's Ontario riding just recently? So I guess really the question is, how much will citizens tolerate being on a ballot? How many things are they going to have to research? How many boxes are they going to have to tick? And really, I guess a long time in coming, the conversation has always existed about private versus public funding for schools. But I like the fact that the money follows the student, because the student is what is important in all of this. And I go back to that in terms of the ATA strike. It's important to have students be at the core and at the center of public education.
Laura, last 30 seconds to you. Could this be the start of a wave of citizen-led petitions? Certainly headlines of late speaking to worries over new mandate letters to ministers pushing toward privatization in healthcare.
I love the surge of democracy. I love to see people getting involved. But at the end of the day, the government is under no obligation to act on these. So it's great, you can go out and get the petitions all you want. But at the end of the day, under our legislation, the government doesn't have to put it on any kind of ballot. They don't even have to act on it. As I say, I love people getting involved, but let's be realistic about whether or not this will actually accomplish something.
All right. We'll have to leave it there for time. Great to see you both. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Nice to see you both, too.